What's up, everybody? Andrew Mahone here with Darium's Competitive Pokemon, finally getting to show off this awesome Buzzwole GX Lycanroc GX deck. This list is based off the list that was able to make the top 8 of the European International Championships. I didn't actually get the exact list, though it might be. A little disclaimer, it might be the exact list, but me and my friend Natalie just built the list based off of what we watched on stream. And, so a lot of the counts are going to borrow from that top 8 list, from what we could tell watching that player play on stream at the European International Championships. But, we did not actually get, clarification that this is the exact list. So I'm not going to label it as such, but this list is very strong in its own right. And, this deck is very strong, obviously making the top 8 at the European International Championships is no joke. So very cool that a player was able to show off just the strength of Buzzwole GX, and also that Lycanroc GX able to get some attention in the spotlight as well. Very cool. So let's check out this awesome fighting deck. No Garbodor to be seen here. I know a lot of players were complaining that they didn't think that they didn't like my version of Buzzwole that played Garbodor in it, and we're just hoping for more fighting support. And this deck has it all. I mean, it really does have just that aggressive, the Guzma effect, especially with Bloodthirsty Eyes, the catcher effect, being able to bring up any Pokemon they want on the bench. Regirock EX getting in the mix as well. So this list has got a lot of really cool things going on. Very aggressive deck, and I'm excited to show it off for you. So start off with 3 copies of Buzzwole GX, 1 Zygarde EX, 2 Lycanroc GX, and 2 Rockruff, along with 1 copy of Regirock EX, 2 copies of Octillery, and 2 copies of Remoraid, as well as 3 copies of Tapu Lele GX. So let's talk about these Pokemon real quick. Obviously, our main attacker is going to be Buzzwole GX, getting in there early with that awesome Jet Punch attack, putting a lot of pressure onto the opponent's Pokemon, doing 50 damage if you have a strong energy attached. 50 damage to the opponent's active Pokemon, 30 to a bench, can really start to just soften up the opponent's Pokemon very early. And you can see that we are not playing any sort of Espeon in here. There is no sort of Po-Town in this list. We are not going for just the Jet Punch strategy. We do play Max Elixir in this deck. That is going to be our main form of dealing big damage. We do intend to use Knuckle Impact with this deck. We do intend to use Absorption GX with this deck, as well as, Cellstorm, Land's Wrath. I mean, heck, you can even Bedrock Press if you wanted to. Going in with Lycanroc GX happens all the time. Dangerous Rogue GX is just an awesome GX attack to have access to as well. So we are really just flaunting the strength of these huge fighting type attacks with this deck. Obviously, Jet Punch can help soften things up and just get out of the gate early, taking a prize or 2 on some weak Pokemon. Jet Punch does great math when combined with Regirock EX. Since we do not play Fighting Fury Belt, we play Choice Band to boost our damage output. Jet Punch only does 50 damage with 1 strong energy attached. If we take into consider Regirock's Regipower ability, which makes it so that fighting Pokemon, excluding Regirock, do 10 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon, meaning that Jet Punch is going to do that perfect 60 damage to the opponent's active Pokemon and 30 damage to a bench. I say that 60 damage is the perfect number because it knocks out so many relevant Pokemon. I mean, we've got Beldum, we've got Rowlet, we've also got Ralts. There are just a lot of Pokemon that get knocked out with a 60 damage Jet Punch. Even Remoraid, right? Vulpix, Alolan Vulpix, they all get knocked out. Rockruff even. 60 is the magic number for knocking out, these kind of lowly basic Pokemon in standard format. And Jet Punch, in combination with Regirock EX, can get there just perfectly to take some early prizes, which is very good. Then, moving on to Knuckle Impact. Knuckle Impact does 160 base damage. We take into consideration Regirock, that's perfect, 170. So that's great numbers for hitting any sort of, Pokemon EX, Pokemon GX, even if you do not have any sort of strong energy attached. If you have a Choice Band attached, that means you're doing, with Regirock, you're going to be doing a base 200 damage. So if you have a strong energy or 2, you can easily get that up into the 220, 240 range to knock out even things like Volcanion EXs with Fighting Fury Belts, Gardevoir GXs, things like that. So Buzzwole just does a huge amount of damage with that Knuckle Impact. And then obviously Absorption GX, if you haven't taken any early prizes, Absorption GX can really get in there to do a ton of damage as well when you're in the 5 to 6 prize card range. Anytime after 5 or 6 prizes, if you've taken 2 already, you have 4 prize cards remaining, it does just as much as Knuckle Impact. However, I have seen some players do something cool where maybe they've taken 2 prizes and they Absorption GX, right? So that then they can keep the same Buzzwole GX active and then Knuckle Impact the following turn. So it is useful for that. Even if you've already taken 2 prizes, you have 4 prizes remaining. Buzzwole GX, just a huge tank of a Pokemon, 190 hit points. That is just a huge amount of hit points. And it's awkward because there's a lot of Pokemon that do 170, 180 damage. 190 just puts it in that next tier of hit points, making it all the harder for the defending Pokemon to knock out, especially in the early game. Zygarde EX is an awesome inclusion here just to diversify the weaknesses, because Buzzwole is weak to Psychic type, Zygarde is weak to Grass. So it is also just another great 190 hit point basic fighting type Pokemon, huge amount of hit points, and it has 3 attacks. So, you know, you can use Lance Pulse. If you have a Stadium card in play, it does 20 more damage. You could do a little bit more damage than you might be doing with Jet Punch on the first turn of the game. With Lance Pulse, you could do 60 damage just naturally if you have a strong energy and a Stadium, and if you have the Regirock in play, then you're doing 70 damage naturally. But the real thing here, Cellstorm, also an excellent attack. Just having access to Cellstorm, being able to heal yourself if there's anything weird going on, like Decidueye damage, things like that. You can heal it off with Cellstorm. Cellstorm has the potential to do just a great amount of vanilla damage as well, and can knock out things like Zoroark GX just very easily. Cellstorm, if you have a strong energy, that's 80 damage. With a Choice Band, then you're going to be doing 110, which can easily knock out anything like a Zoroark GX, something like that, just with 2 energy, which is an excellent option to have in case, you know, your opponent is rushing you and it's hard for you to get your 3 energy onto a Pokemon or something like that. So Cellstorm can get out there, hit fighting type weakness Pokemon, also heal you off. And then Land's Wrath, you know, definitely not as exciting as Knuckle Impact, but, you know, for 3 energy, you can make those numbers get up there with the combination of Choice Band, Regirock EX, and Strong Energy. Land's Wrath can take some one-hit knockouts against 180 hit point Pokemon EX, things like that. However, I would mostly be using Zygarde EX if you were faced off against something that was attacking for a Psychic weakness, and you just need to put somebody out there who is not weak to Psychic, and who, you know, might not have enough energy to put onto your Lycanroc GX or something like that. Zygarde can definitely hit in a pinch. The 1 copy of Regirock EX, obviously very good just for boosting your overall damage output. Hitting some relevant numbers with Jet Punch is nice to have as an option, just to get, you know, fix those numbers and make sure that you're hitting, you know, for just the right amount all the time. We also play a 2-2 line of Lycanroc GX, just 2 Rockruffs and 2 Lycanrocs. And the Lycanroc here, that Bloodthirsty Eyes ability just gives you so much access to your opponent's bench. It is just so easy to set up early, get a couple Jet Punches going, and then just start the Bloodthirsty Eyes. You can play a supportive return like Sycamore or N, still draw into your evolution Pokemon, evolve, you know, and then, you know, bring up one of your opponent's bench Pokemon without playing Guzma. Just such a great option for this deck to have, making it all the more aggressive. This really makes Jet Punch such a good attack, just because you can hand select wherever you want on your opponent's side of the field to place that very early aggressive amounts of damage. So Lycanroc GX, definitely a staple in this kind of deck. So long, you know, we're not playing Garbodor, so we might as well take advantage of these awesome abilities. Not only that, but Dangerous Road GX is just a very valid GX attack to think about. Doing 50 damage times the amount of the opponent's bench Pokemon. If the opponent has up to 5 bench Pokemon in play, that's going to be doing 250 damage, just a huge amount of damage. If you have a strong energy, something like that, Choice Band, you could be hitting upwards of 300 damage with the Dangerous Rogue GX very easily. And just for 2 energy attachments, it is just very efficient as well. So at any point in the game, you could just put a fighting energy onto a Rockruff. You don't even have to max elixir it on. You could just attach one. If you have a free turn, you don't need energy anywhere else, Then for the rest of the game, you've got, you know, Bloodthirsty Eyes attach Dangerous Rogue GX for just a very aggressive knockout on your opponent's side of the field. So I think that that is a very good play, and Lycanroc GX just makes this deck really sing, really makes Buzzwole all that much better. We're also playing a 2/2 Octillery line. Obviously, that Abyssal Hand ability just very strong, being able to draw the deck out, refill your hand to 5 every turn. A 2/2 line means that we're going to be setting up Octillery almost every game. And Octillery here really just makes sure the deck is drawing that much, you know, just drawing exactly as aggressive as it needs to be taking these knockouts, pointed knockouts on your opponent's side of the field. Because with this deck, you really need to place your damage exactly where you want. You want to Guzma or Bloodthirsty Eyes up exactly the target you want to hit when you want to hit it on your opponent's side of the field, and you want to hit it hard. You want to be drawing into max elixirs. You want to be drawing into strong energy, and Octillery really helps to execute that game plan. Then, with 3 copies of Tapu Lele GX, we're not usually going to be attacking with this thing, but we are going to be able to get the supporters we want when we want them out of the deck. We don't play Garbodor, so these are always going to be live cards with that Wonder Tag ability, and I really like the inclusion of 3. Some lists have been cutting to 2, but I think 3 Tapu Lele GX just always feels safe to me, especially for those first turns of the game, which can make or break your entire game if you don't start off on the right foot with a good opening supporter. So that's it for the Pokemon. Let's go ahead and move on to the supporters for this Lycanroc Buzzwole deck. We do play 4 copies of Professor Sycamore, 4 copies of N, and this is wild, 4 copies of Guzma to go along with the Bloodthirsty Eyes, and 1 copy of Brigette. Obviously, Sycamore and N, what more can be said about the 2 strongest draw supporters in the game? In combination with your thick Octillery line and your Tapu Leles, you're going to have plenty of options for drawing. Brigette, a 1 of, is probably fine in this deck just because you don't really need it that often. I mean, if you start off with just a Buzzwole, Attach an Energy, and Sycamore, you're going to be fine. It doesn't really matter if it takes you a couple turns in order to find your Rockruff or in order to find your Remoraid. Eventually, you will be able to go in with Brooklet Hill and get your basics out that way. We do play 3 copies of Brooklet Hill, I believe. Yes, we do play 3 copies of Brooklet Hill. So Brigette, though good, is not necessarily needed turn 1 every time because we do have ways to set up basic Pokemon on the bench without Brigette. So 1 copy is nice, but not totally necessary to have more than 1, especially since we're not playing a big setup deck with rare candies or anything like that. Then 4 copies of Guzma, that is something to write home about. This is pretty wild for a deck that already plays Bloodthirsty Eyes to bring up Pokemon on the opponent's side of the field. 4 copies of Guzma means you're going to be able to target down whatever you want, whenever you want it, on your opponent's side of the field. 4 copies of Guzma also acts as a valid switching card, so you're going to be able to bring your heavy retreaters out of the active position should you need to, when you need to. 4 copies of Guzma in here in combination with Bloodthirsty Eyes just makes this deck so aggressive and definitely played a key in this deck doing so well at the European International Championships. Moving on to items. We are playing 4 copies of Ultra Ball, obviously, to go search out whatever Pokemon you want when you want it. Set up your stage 1s, get your turn 1 Tapu Leles, all that good stuff. Ultra Ball is here for you. 4 copies of Max Elixir just to accelerate those basic fighting energies onto the bench so that you can pull off some big attacks with your Zygardes, with your Buzzwoles, or even if you accelerate to a Rockruff and then, you know, attach manually, you could pull off a surprise Rogue GX as well. 3 copies of Choice Band just to boost your own damage output. 2 copies of Floatstone just to increase the mobility in this deck. Like I said, we do have a lot of heavy retreaters, so 2 copies of Floatstone is very good. 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher, just a nice card to be able to bring Pokemon back from the discard pile. Very useful just to have that sort of selection, you know, when it's late in the game and you've discarded a lot of different things, just to have that selection to get who you want when you want it late in the game. I do love 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher. 1 copy of Field Blower because this deck doesn't really rely on abilities all that much. Not to mention it's going to be able to target down Pokemon on the bench pretty early. So if you do worry about Garbodor or something like that, you know, you can probably target down the Garbodor and knock it out. But, you know, 1 Field Blower means that it's going to be a little sketchy removing things like Fighting Fury Belts from your opponent's Volcanions if you happen to be playing against that deck. 3 copies of Brooklet Hill means that you're going to be able to search out your basic fighting Pokemon like Rockruff and your water Pokemon like Remoraid very easily. And I think that Brooklet Hill is what makes this whole deck work. We are playing a big basic deck essentially, but with 2 different stage 2s in it. And Brooklet Hill just increases the consistency of this list so much that you get one out. If your opponent doesn't field blow it away or counter it, then you're just going to be searching out the exact basic Pokemon you want when you want them. I mean, you could go get Pokemon EX with this. You can go get Pokemon GX with this. You can go ahead and get your Regirock with this if you need it when you need it. You can go get your Zygarde with this if you happen to be playing against Psychic Pokemon. Brooklet Hill is so great and really just fills the gaps for this deck where it needs it most. We need a free search in this deck, and Brooklet Hill answers that question very good. Also, since your Regirock and since your Regirock EX and since your Zygarde EX cannot be searched out via Brigette, it makes it a little weird to get them into play, having to rely on Ultra Brawl. Brooklet Hill is an excellent option for being able to go and grab those Pokemon without having to discard cards with Ultra Ball. So I do love 3 copies of Brooklet Hill in here as well. And finally, to wrap things up with the energy, we do play 4 copies of Strong Energy, and we play 9 copies of Fighting Energy. I think 9 is the magic number for any deck playing Max Elixir. You're going to want at least 9 basic energies just to be able to hit those Max Elixirs consistently. You saw that we don't have any sort of energy recovery in this deck, but, 13 energy is just a lot of energy to play, and you should be able to manage your resources appropriately enough, especially with all of that, access to your opponent's bench. You should be able to utilize this amount of energy to take the 6 prizes you need to win a game. So that's it for Lycanroc GX, Buzzwole GX. Let me know what you all think of this amazing deck in the comments below. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching. Peace.